we continue to provide our 2023 NFL team power rankings, counting down from 32 all the way down to number 1. And in this video, we reveal number 8 to number 1. And it's coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lake.
And I'm Gary Kurtzman.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants, here to bring you our top 8 teams. Who do we have left? Baltimore, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Dallas, Kansas City, Miami, Philadelphia, and San Francisco. That's in alphabetical order to go through. If you want to know where we rank the other 24 teams, you have to watch one of the 3 shows we have down in the description. Eric, where are we going to start with number 8?
All right, this is it. We're coming down to it, folks. All right, number 8 is the Miami Dolphins at 9-8. Look, this was a team that was 8-5 with Tua and 1-4 without. I'm just going to tell you, I'm super high on this team because, quite frankly, you can make an argument if they stay healthy that they are a top 5 offense and they're a top 5 defense. Gary, I think you shared in my optimism with Miami. Why do you like them?
Why do I like Miami? It's all predicated on Tua staying healthy and playing football. It really is. And that's a humongous if. Now, we will know, for instance, a lot of viewers are using this video to decide who they want to pick for or against on Survivor. And the good news is you'll know whether Tua is playing and whether Tua is healthy right before you make those picks. So this is all predicated on Tua staying healthy, because Tua is essentially such that I see him taking the same progress, the same path for the same reasons as Trevor Lawrence on Jacksonville. I think we're seeing the procession of a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, throwing to an offense that was already a top 10 offense. And it's only going to get better, because bear in mind, they were a top 10 offense with mediocre to below mediocre quarterback play for 5 or 6 games last year, right? When Tua is playing, they're a top 5 offense. And that's a huge deal. And they haven't lost anybody, terribly material. I don't know how you feel about Devontae Parker necessarily, but, honestly, there's nobody they can't replace that they've lost on offense. Defense is where they're going to have to take the leap forward. They haven't been any better than a mediocre defense for most of the last few years, frankly, in the NFL. On the other hand, the natural progressions of a couple of rookies that they drafted last year and the year before, combined with what I think are very good offseason moves, is going to make this defense a lot better. I think most people think it's going to be a top 10 defense this year. And so, hey, what are we looking at? We're looking at a team that combines a top 10 offense with a top 10 defense. Anytime you do that, you're going to be a good football team.
I like how you lowered expectations. You took my top 5 on each side and lowered it to 10. Michael.
Yeah, well, I mean, he hit it, right? So the addition of Vic Fangio to be defensive coordinator, and then adding Jalen Ramsey to Javon Holland, who is just a stud, I think is huge. Adding David Long Jr. out of Tennessee, I think is a big deal as well. Their defense is going to be better this year. And I was a big fan of their prior head coach, Flores. So I think, Fangio is a good, kind of addition to make up for that. But yeah, I mean, if Tua doesn't stay healthy, Mike White just isn't quite going to do it. So, Tyreek Hill can spread any defense, and that will really help. And obviously Jalen Waddle is a huge compliment. And then the San Francisco 49ers running back core, which is what makes up Miami Dolphins now, will help them be strong on the offensive side. So this coaching staff is really a big part of the reason why this team is going to be successful, going to make the playoffs. I would say even if there is an injury to Tua, they make the playoffs, but obviously that will make an impact how far in the playoffs they will go. Eric?
I just say speed kills. This is such an explosive offense, right? Even without Tua for 5 games, they finished 5th in air yards per attempt. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are so explosive, but they also added a deep threat in Chosen Anderson, aka Robbie Anderson, from the past. They added a speedster at running back with Devon Achane. So I really am excited about this Miami team, with the huge caveat, if they stay healthy. If you would have told me for sure that Tua will be healthy for the entire year, I would have ranked them much higher than I did. So I actually thought my ranking was wrong. It's either going to be lower or higher, depending on the health. But if things work out. All right, number 7. How about them Cowboys? At number 7, Dallas was 12-5 for the second year in a row. Lots to talk about with the Cowboys. Michael, tell us, what do you think about the Cowboys this upcoming?
Well, a lot of people think they're top 6. So, I guess that's only 1 point above where we got them now. But they needed some upgrades, right? The cornerback position, the receiver position. So they added Stephon Gilmore, they added Brandon Cooks, and then defensive tackle, Maisie Smith. So they've made some additions. I'm not a huge fan of Mike McCarthy, who's also the play caller. So that now that they lost Kellen Moore, so that scares me. This defense is so good. If it wasn't for their head coach play calling situation, I think they would be perhaps the best team in the NFC. But Mike McCarthy's still there, and that disappoints me. Gary?
Yeah, I mean, agree with everything that Michael said, and maybe just for addition purposes, there are only 3 teams in the NFL where both the offense and the defense finished in the top 6 last year. The Dallas Cowboys are one of them, and that was before one of the epic off seasons. I think they had a top 3 or 4 off season across the NFL, and who they brought in, not just for the talent that they brought in, but for the positions of need that they brought them in for. This team is going to be better. I think you ask 10 experts across the NFL, and 11 of them are going to say Dallas is going to be a better team this year than they were last year. Well, if they were top 6 in offense and defense last year, then look out. I wouldn't be surprised if they outperform this 7th ranking. I think that they are going to push the Eagles hard. And the Eagles had a very good offseason, but they're going to push them hard to win the division. I think there's no chance of the Cowboys missing the playoffs. And I think they could do some damage while they're there. I think if you're the Niners and you're the Eagles, look out, because you got another team on the horizon you got to contend with.
Yeah. So I think, can you Dak, to go to the next level, needs to play better? And is there an ability to give him better weapons around that will make him better? And I think that's adding Brandon Cooks, I think, should really help with that. I mean, CeeDee Lamb was by far their best wide receiver, and no one else was close. Now, maybe Michael Gallup, who was invisible last year coming off an ACL, will go back to form in his second year after the ACL, and Brandon Cooks. Now, they did lose Dalton Schultz. That's going to hurt. Number 6, we have, because of me, the Baltimore Ravens. They would have been higher if I had my say in it. So they were 10-7 last year, and that's what's so impressive. They were 10-7 without Lamar Jackson for 5 games. So why do I like them? First of all, let's talk about their rushing attack. I've been saying so much about ACL injuries. J.K. Dobbins in 2021 had an ACL injury, but it looks like he finally recovered toward the end part of last year. Last 4 games, he averaged greater than 99 yards a game. And now they really improved in their offensive weapons in the passing game. They threw $15 million over just 1 year at Odell Beckham Jr. They drafted Zay Flowers. This is all to go along with Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews at tight end. So I really do like their passing attack, and I think they have a strong offensive line with former All-Pro Ronnie Staley, and last year's rookie center Tyler Linderbaum. Love this offense, and I won't even talk yet about the defense, but let's just say let's not forget the X factor. Justin Tucker is the best kicker in the NFL. In any close game, the Ravens automatically have an advantage.
Just to provide a little bit of a counterpoint, I'm not going to talk about their defense. Their defense is stellar. Their defense is going to get better this year, and it was already top 3 last year. Eric, I'm not as high on their offense as you are. Their offensive line is good, but not great. They don't have a running back who at any point in the last 3 years has been anything close to like Pro Bowl caliber, for example. Their wide receiver core is either going to be carried by Rashad Bateman, who you are obviously more high on Rashad Bateman than I am. I don't think well, put it this way, if you just based on the year that he had last year, the year that he had last year was mostly forgettable. And if you think that Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be the answer, he's 3 seasons removed from a Pro Bowl season. So he's getting older. He's coming off a big injury, and it has been a long time since he's been great. And these are the people that you have to rely on, frankly, to take it to the next level. Everybody. And, I'd love to share your optimism about J.K. Dobbins, and I hope it's true. I know he finished the season strong last year, and he may be a fantasy delight this year. But I don't see any running back having a huge impact on Baltimore because their lead running back is always going to be Lamar Jackson. But I just don't think it's a recipe for success to have your best offensive weapon be your quarterback on his feet, rushing for yardage. Too much of a chance for injury. Lamar's not accurate enough, frankly, to run a high-powered passing attack. Too many holes in this offense. I'm a little lower in Baltimore than you are.
Yeah, I think I helped drag him down a little bit as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of John Harbaugh. I think he's a great coach. I think they did exactly what they needed to do to get what they need out of Lamar Jackson to make him a top running back, quarterback as a running back, because they paid him guaranteed money, which hopefully will make him more willing to run the ball. But I bet that makes them a little more concerned about getting him hurt. And I don't believe in Lamar Jackson as a thrower. Yeah, he was able to get the ball more successfully to Mark Andrews than Tyler Huntley was, but I think that has a lot to do with opening up the passing game, and they don't have the speed surge. Yes, Rashad Bateman is pretty quick, and he was out for most of the season, but he's not the same speed that they had before, and I think that's why Mark Andrews was not quite as effective. So unless Lamar Jackson's willing to run the ball like he has in years past, and I'm not sure they're going to be willing to do that because then they'll look stupid if he gets hurt this year. I just don't see this team doing what maybe you think they can do, Eric. If he does and he stays healthy, then, I mean, he's perhaps the best running back in the league as a quarterback, and a dual threat who, at least you have to think they can throw the ball. But, man, if you watch him miss his targets, if you watch the video footage that has been put up on Lamar Jackson, he's not a threat to throw the ball. So I don't see why you really need to worry much about his passing game. So we'll see.
Let's move on to number 5 on the list, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. They are 13-4. It fell just short of the Super Bowl. Gary, talk to us about the Bengals.
Seems like we can now talk about Cincinnati Bengals as being perennial Super Bowl contenders. I mean, 2 years in a row, one where they made it, one where they came damn close. And here we are talking about it again as a top 5 team, as well-deserved, as well they should. I think the best thing that Cincinnati's done for the past couple of years hasn't been what everybody's talked about. Everybody talks about the offense. They got Joe Burrow a few years ago, and then they got Jamar Chase. And, they have this high-flying offense, and that's great. I think the best improvements they made by far on defense, because we're now talking about the second straight year where Cincinnati has a top 5 defense. That never used to be the case with the Cincinnati Bengals, ever. They are an extraordinarily balanced team, and that's what I like about them. They can win the game on the ground with that offensive line and their running backs. They can win the game in the air with some elite quarterback and wide receiver play. They can now win games on defense by shutting you down. Top 5 in yardage allowed, points allowed, second straight year. And they haven't had any major pieces leave this team in the past couple of years to make me think that there's going to be any sort of downfall or downgrade for these guys. I love the Cincinnati Bengals. I think, I certainly think that they're going to win their division. They're going to make some noise in the playoffs. And I, frankly, if not for the fact that we still haven't talked about two other AFC teams that are probably equally elite in the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, I think the Cincinnati Bengals should be pretty pissed off they don't play in the NFC, frankly, because they'd have a field day with most of the NFC divisions, frankly.
And you didn't even mention Lou Anarumo, the defensive play caller, who I think a lot of people are hugely high, who are very high on. You mentioned the balance that the Bengals have, and Joe Burrow, really, he's a star, and his ability to make decisions, in tough spots, in unique spots, that still the wins that they had over Kansas City 3 times out of the last 4, I think just shows how impressive not only this coaching staff but this team is behind Joe Burrow. And Awuzie is coming back in 2023. I don't think they thought they were gonna lose him. They kept him. This team, watch them. They may sneak up to number 1. I really like them.
Well, Cincinnati has really struggled the last 2 or 3 years trying to work on improving that offensive line. They really know how important it is. And I think getting 4-time Pro Bowler Orlando Brown to protect Burrow's blind side is huge. The one little concern I have is they let Samaje Perine go. And he is a guy that would come in on 3rd down, does a great job of pass protecting and catching balls out of the backfield. They put all their faith in Joe Mixon, who did not have a good year last year. But I love the Bengals. I think that they are a true contender, and they belong number 5 on the list. Number 4 may surprise some people. They may have thought that this team would have been higher. They are the San Francisco 49ers at 13-4. They finished strong last year, finishing the regular season at 10-0, 12-0, counting the playoffs if you disregard the Philadelphia game where they played most of the game without a quarterback. Let's turn it over to our resident 49er expert on the panel. Gary, no one watches more 49er games, at least of us 3, than you. Tell us what your thoughts are this upcoming year.
I think they're pretty good. Ho! In case you're wondering what I bring to the viewership, it's the bad puns and bad jokes. Yes, indeed. So what do I think about the 49ers? Well, the fact of the matter is that we've ranked them higher than all but one NFC team. And over the past 2 years, they have been better than all but one of the NFC teams. So I think in general, that makes a lot of sense. All right, I'm going to try and disassociate myself as a fan and just focus objectively here, but you guys should absolutely bring me back down to earth when I eventually overstep. Hey, look, here's the deal. They have an elite defense. Nobody's got a defense like San Francisco. Nobody. They've been a top 3 defense for the past 3 years or even 4 years, really, with the exception of the Nick Bosa injury. And nothing is going to change that fact. To go along with a truly elite defense is an offense that can run the ball down your throat. That's a combination of play calling with Shanahan and with some genuinely good offensive personnel, including now Christian McCaffrey, who we're going to have for a full season now, and an offensive line, which is consistently ranked in the top 10, in some years in the top 5. Right. So all that says that we're going to have an elite defense, a really good running game. That alone is going to win you games. We don't need Brock Purdy to be Jalen Hurts. We don't need Brock Purdy to be anything other than a good quarterback. I think he reads defenses very well. I think his reaction time is good, and I think he's very accurate. All that is great stuff. I don't care where he was drafted. But the fact of the matter is, can he do it against good defenses? We don't know. We just don't know. If he can't, the Niners are in trouble because we know less than that about Trey Lance. Who's going to come in disaster for the 49ers to have made that trade for Trey Lance. Shortens our window considerably for how good we can be, giving up those first-round picks. So I've talked too much already. I'm going to turn it over to you guys, but I think if Brock Purdy takes the next step and is a good quarterback against good defenses, Niners could be number one. Otherwise, they may lose in the first round of the playoffs.
Just a quick.
Yeah, and don't forget Brock Purdy's coming off the surgery. I mean, it sounds like it was successful, and shouldn't impact him. It's not the kind of injury that usually affects the mentality as well. But I think you made a good point in terms of kind of his unprovenness against top defenses. To me, the area where the San Francisco continues to get a pass and they shouldn't is their defensive backfield. I don't think they have a great defensive backfield. I think that's where you can pick on them. Obviously, their defensive line is so good that they added Javon Hargrave as well. They don't give a lot of time to teams to throw the ball. And with Greenlaw and Warner, I mean, the linebackers are the best in the league. But I think you can pick on them in the backfield. I'm surprised that teams haven't done a better job of that. But maybe I'm better at game planning against bad defenses or weak defenses than that. So they belong as the number 2 team in the NFC. That's for sure.
At number 3 is the Buffalo Bills. They were 13-3. Michael, what are your take on the Bills?
A lot of people are down on the Bills in terms of what they're going to be this year. I mean, Eric and I picked them last year to go to the Super Bowl and actually be Super Bowl champs, and that didn't happen. And part of that was with some bad throws, bad decision making on the part of the quarterback, who had a great second year and not such a great third year. Or I might have got those years wrong. And he had a little bit of an average supporting cast this last year as well. But it looks like Stefon Diggs and Allen are fully recovered from their issues this last year. So we'll hope that Allen's elbow is back to normal. And I think that if so, these guys are going to be Super Bowl contenders yet again. Maybe not quite where the Chiefs are, we haven't talked about. So I'm not so sure that they belong here, but I helped put them there. So I get it. Gary, what do you want to add?
I just want to add that to me, they're the most complete team, absolutely most complete team. I had them ranked number 1 overall in the NFL. So I am this year where Eric and Michael were last year. I think their offense got even better. I think their running back play is definitely going to be better, out with Singletary, in with running back by committee, but 2 running backs that were very highly drafted and highly touted. And their wide receiver play is going to be very good, even elite, with Stefon Diggs. And now they have better tight end play as well, thanks to the draft this year. So I love that offense and their defense. Second ranked in the NFL. They're always one of the best defenses. I just think that they're so complete. They're going to be awfully tough to beat.
Be honest, Gary. Do you know DeAndre Hopkins? Do you know something that you want to announce today? That is he going to sign with Denver or with Buffalo? That would make me put them number 1 overall if that happened. I just throw in that Buffalo did improve on the offensive line. They signed guard Connor McGovern and drafted Osiris Torrance. I like this Buffalo Bills team, even though they burned me last year with not having that pick correctly. Number 2, Michael, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Tell us your quick take on the Eagles.
They came up short in the Super Bowl, but I think Jalen Hurts proved that he really is one of the best quarterbacks with such a historic performance. They actually had a pretty good draft class as well with this Jalen Carter, who was one of the best prospects. And they added Nolan Smith as well. So best team in the NFC, best defense, top 2 defense in the NFL. And then they're performing on the offensive side. I think the NFC is easier to get through the AFC, which really helps them. It's going to be them and the Niners the whole way through, even though that NFC East has some challenges for the Eagles. So to me, this is the odds-on favorite to return to the NFC Championship, to return to the Super Bowl this year. Eric?
Yeah, I've just been so impressed of this Eagles offseason. I mean, they lost a bunch of people headed by Javon Hargrave, and it just feels like they were able to backfill it on defense really well. As a Seahawk fan, if he can stay healthy, I think Rashad Penny was a nice cheap pick, as well as DeAndre Swift. Great offensive line behind Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson. But I think what's most impressive, Gary, for me, is Jalen Hurts proved he's not a running quarterback. Yes, he was third in the league for rushing for first down. So they used him as a real running threat. But the guy can throw the ball. He just needed weapons, and thank goodness for AJ Brown, huh? I'm really high on this Philadelphia Eagles team. Yes, Eagles.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Brown for sure. And, for God's sakes, they drafted Jalen Reagor when they could have drafted Justin Jefferson. Imagine how good that receiving core would be with Justin Jefferson with the Philadelphia Eagles. I like them. I'm not quite as high as you guys are. I think that they have a mediocre and nothing more than that linebacking core, and that's been a problem for the Eagles in the past. They drafted Jalen Carter. Let's let him prove it first, because he was kind of a head case at Georgia, and certainly his motivation's been questioned over and over again.
All right, we've come to number one, and you guys should have figured it out. Partially you should figure it out because Michael Wiley had to go. I think as a Raider fan, he just hates this team so much he couldn't stand to talk about them. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. 14-3. No one has dominated the sport like the Chiefs have recently. They've won the AFC 7 straight years. They've hosted the NFC conference game 5 straight years. But Gary, when I was taking a look at this, I wondered how much I'm just mesmerized by the Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy Reid factor, right? Because it feels to me, and we're not alone, almost all pundits out there have Kansas City as the Super Bowl champion, as the team, because they lost a couple of members of the offensive line, but they replaced them, I think, adequately. I just don't. I think we think as a group it's going to be more of the same. Do you have any qualms or any concerns that this Kansas City team is going to be significant? It's going to take a step back. Put it that way.
No, not based on not based on the offseason that they've had, but I guess at the end of the day, I continue to be amazed with the Chiefs and how they do it with a defense that isn't great. It just isn't. They're not as complete a team as Cincinnati. They're not as complete a team as Buffalo. And it can come back to haunt them. It came back to haunt them versus Kansas City versus Cincinnati 2 years ago. Comes back to haunt them almost every time they play Cincinnati, basically. This is a team that has to outscore you. They're not going to be a team that keeps you to under 15, 16 points, because they can't do that. They have a pretty strong pass rush, but their secondary lacks any real star power. They have one great linebacker, but overall their linebacking core is good but not great. It's a good but far from elite defense. Far from elite. In fact, they were league average in points allowed for the and that's amazing for a Super Bowl champion. First of all, it shows you how good Mahomes is and how good Andy Reid is, how good that offense is, because they're number one almost every year. But I think Buffalo is a better team than them because they're far more balanced. They have a much better defense. And frankly, I don't think Cincinnati's beating them 3 out of 4 times is a fluke. I think every year I continue to think that Kansas City is going to be a top 3 team in the AFC. And at best, it's a coin flip to see whether Buffalo, Cincinnati, or Kansas City is going to come out on top.
Man, any final thoughts about the top 8, which we have Miami, Dallas, Baltimore, Cincinnati, San Francisco, Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Kansas City?
I think if you tell me 2 is healthy, I think literally any 8 of those teams could represent their conference in the Super Bowl. And that is saying something about parity, about quality, and about the fun of punditry. Because if that wasn't the case, this wouldn't be nearly as interesting a video.
It's true. And and all the pundits, including us last year, constantly say that the AFC is so much better than the NFC, but Philadelphia came super close to winning that Super Bowl. So it's going to be a really fun open year. We just remind you, if you're doing NFL Survivor teams, you got to continue to look at this list and adjust this list as more information happens as the season progresses. But it should be a fun year, and we will be covering NFL Survivor content this year, and we're excited to do this. Gary, great to have you in the co-pilot chair with me, along with Michael Wiley. Until next time, everybody, take care.
See you then.
On your screen, if you missed it, is some of the power ranking videos that we did earlier.